Most people believe success belongs to the smartest person in the room, the highest IQ, the fastest thinker, the one who solves problems the quickest. But if that were true, the most intelligent people would always have the best lives. And we know that's not what happens. So what's missing? Hello and welcome back to Bookworm. Today we're diving into Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman, a book that changed how psychologists understand success, relationships, and decision making. Goleman argues that intelligence alone is not what determines how your life unfolds. In fact, your ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions may matter even more. Because emotions are not just feelings, they influence your decisions, they affect your relationships, and they determine how you respond to pressure, criticism, and uncertainty. Have you ever said something in anger that you later regretted? Or decided in a moment of stress that you wish you could undo? Psychologists call this an emotional hijack, when the emotional part of your brain reacts faster than your rational thinking. And it happens to all of us. But the powerful idea in this book is that emotional intelligence is not something you're simply born with. It's something you can develop. You can learn to recognize your emotional patterns, and you can learn to understand the emotions of the people around you. Stay with me until the end, because one of the most surprising ideas in this book explains why people with average IQ often outperform those who are technically smarter. And once you understand that, you'll start noticing emotional intelligence everywhere, in conversations, in leadership, and even in your own habits. If you enjoy psychological insights that help you understand yourself and others more clearly, like the video, subscribe to Bookworm, and tell me in the comments, do you think emotions help or hurt decision making? Now, let's go deeper into emotional intelligence.
Have you ever met someone who is just brilliant, like off the charts smart, but they just can't seem to get their life together? Meanwhile, you see other people with, let's say, more average smarts, and they're just thriving. It's a real puzzle, right? Well, today we're going to dive into the book that gave us a groundbreaking answer to that question, Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence. We're going to explore his idea that there's another kind of intelligence, one that might just be the most important key to a happy and successful life.
And this whole idea isn't even new. I mean, look at this quote from Aristotle from over 2,000 years ago. He absolutely nailed the problem. Getting angry is easy. We all do it. But controlling that anger, making sure it's aimed at the right person, for the right reason, and expressed in the right way, now that is hard. What Goleman's work does is give us a modern map for solving this ancient human challenge. It's not about getting rid of feelings, but about getting smart with our feelings.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we're going to look at why IQ just isn't the whole picture. Then we'll take a little trip inside our own heads and meet our emotional brain. After that, we'll get into the good stuff, the 5 key skills of emotional intelligence. And we'll wrap up with maybe the most important message of all. This stuff can be learned. Okay, for the longest time, we've kind of worshipped at the altar of IQ. The higher the number, the more successful you are supposed to be. But what if that's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle? Goleman really challenges this idea, arguing that we've been totally ignoring another set of skills that are absolutely crucial for navigating life. I mean, really think about it. We all know that person. Super smart, great at tests, but a total disaster when it comes to relationships or handling stress. The smartest people can be completely derailed by their own impulses and passions. So if a high IQ doesn't guarantee a good life, what's the missing ingredient? What else is going on? Well, check this out. According to the research Goleman presents, your IQ, your academic intelligence, accounts for only about 20% of your success in life. 20%, that's it. All those grades, all those test scores, they only predict a tiny fraction of your overall well-being and effectiveness. So, what about the other 80%? I mean, that's a huge chunk, right? This is where Goleman's big idea comes in. He argues that this massive gap is filled by a whole range of other abilities that he calls emotional intelligence, or EI for short. This is the game changer.
And he's got the receipts to back it up. This isn't just a hunch. For example, a major study followed Harvard grads from the 1940s for decades. The result? The guys with the highest test scores weren't necessarily the ones who ended up being the most successful, whether you measure by salary, happiness, or career status. And another incredible study followed 450 boys for 40 years and found that things like their ability to handle frustration or get along with others were way better predictors of their adult success than their IQ scores.
Okay, to really get what emotional intelligence is, we have to understand where our emotions actually come from. We need to pop the hood and look at the wiring of our own brains. This is where we figure out why, sometimes, our feelings just seem to take over and make us do things we totally regret later.
Goleman explains it like this. We basically have two minds working at the same time. You've got your rational mind. That's the one you think of as you. It's logical, it's slow, it thinks things through. But then you have your emotional mind, and this one is the total opposite. It's lightning fast, it's impulsive, and it is incredibly powerful. You can think of it as your head and your heart. And our whole mental life is really just a constant balancing act between these two.
Now, what happens when that emotional mind gets completely overwhelmed? Goleman has a perfect name for it, an emotional hijacking. This is that moment where you just snap. You yell something you instantly wish you could take back, or you're frozen by panic. It's when your emotional brain, centered in a little part called the amygdala, yanks the steering wheel away from your rational brain. And the results are, well, they're often not pretty.
So how does this hijacking even happen? Well, your brain has an emergency shortcut. When you see something scary, like a car swerving towards you, the signal from your eyes doesn't go to your thinking brain first. No, it takes a super fast route directly to your emotional alarm system. That's the amygdala. The amygdala acts like a tripwire, instantly sounding the alarm. Only after that, moments later, does the signal reach your thinking brain, the neocortex, which can then figure out, oh, okay, the car missed us, we're fine. But the initial reaction, that's all the amygdala.
You can think of your amygdala as your brain's little security guard. It's on duty 24/7, constantly scanning everything you experience and asking these super primitive, super important questions. Is this a threat? Do I hate this? Does this hurt? Am I afraid of this? If it gets a yes, it pulls the fire alarm for the whole brain. It's a fantastic survival tool from our caveman days, but in our modern world, it can sometimes overreact.
All right, so we've got this powerful, ancient, emotional brain that can hijack our rational thoughts. A little scary, right? But here's the good news. This is where emotional intelligence comes in as the solution. Goleman breaks it down into 5 core skills that we can actually learn. Skills that help us manage that emotional brain instead of letting it manage us.
And here they are, the 5 pillars of EI. We have self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. These aren't just buzzwords. They're a practical toolkit for being smarter about how we feel and how we act. Let's take a look at each one.
First up, and honestly, this is the foundation for everything else, is self-awareness. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It's the ability to notice you're having a feeling while you're having it. It's the little voice in your head that says, wow, I am getting really angry right now, instead of just being lost in the anger. That one little moment of recognition is the first step to gaining control. It lets you see how your feelings are driving your thoughts and actions.
So once you're aware of a feeling, what do you do with it? That brings us to our second pillar, self-regulation. This is all about managing your emotions so they don't manage you. It's the skill of hitting the pause button between feeling an impulse and acting on it. Instead of immediately snapping back at someone, you take a breath. You choose your response. This skill is the direct antidote to an emotional hijacking. It's how you calm the storm inside.
Number 3 is motivation. And we're not just talking about wanting a bigger paycheck. In EI terms, motivation is about using your emotions to push you toward your goals. It's about that deep internal drive, the passion for what you do that makes you want to get better. It's what allows you to persist when things get tough and to stay optimistic even after you've failed. It's channeling your feelings into achievement.
Next up, we have empathy. And this is where we start turning our emotional intelligence outward. Empathy is the ability to tune in to what other people are feeling, even when they're not saying it out loud. The more aware you are of your own emotions, the easier it becomes to read them in others. It's about seeing things from their perspective. It's the absolute bedrock of compassion, trust, and any healthy relationship. And finally, our 5th pillar is social skills. This is where all the other skills really come together and shine. It's emotional intelligence in action. It's using your self-awareness, your self-control, and your empathy to build relationships, to communicate effectively, to persuade, and to handle difficult social situations with grace. It's what makes people great leaders, teammates, and friends.
Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This all sounds great, but I'm just not wired that way. I'm hot-headed, or I'm just not a people person. Well, here comes the most optimistic, most powerful message from Goleman's work.
That's just not true. Your emotional intelligence is not set in stone.
The science behind this is something called neuroplasticity, and all it means is that your brain is constantly changing based on your experiences. The neural pathways that control your emotions are surprisingly flexible. You can literally practice new habits and, over time, rewire your brain to be more patient, more empathetic, more self-aware. As Goleman says, temperament is not destiny.
And this isn't just some abstract idea. It's actually being taught. Schools all over are now using what they call emotional literacy programs. They're teaching kids these exact skills: how to put a name to what they're feeling, how to calm themselves down, how to listen to others, and how to work through disagreements. They're learning the building blocks of emotional intelligence for life.
So, in the end, you can think of emotional intelligence as a meta ability. Meta just means it's an ability that affects all your other abilities. It doesn't matter how high your IQ is if you can't control your impulses or get along with the people on your team. EI is what allows you to unlock the full potential of your intellect and all your other skills.
And that's really the big takeaway here. The goal isn't to get rid of our emotions. Our feelings are what make us human. They make life worth living. The real challenge and the real opportunity is to stop letting our emotions rule us, and instead start bringing our intelligence to our emotions. It's about learning to manage our passions with skill, with wisdom, and with heart.
If this book leaves you with one realization, it's this: your emotions are not the enemy, they are information. For a long time, people believed that rational thinking and emotion were opposites, that to make good decisions, you needed to ignore your feelings. But Daniel Goleman shows something very different. Your emotional system evolved to help you respond quickly to important situations. Fear warns you about danger. Anger signals injustice. Empathy allows you to understand others. The problem isn't emotion itself. The problem is unawareness. When you're unaware of what you're feeling, emotions control you. They shape your reactions without your permission. But when you become aware of them, something powerful happens. You create space between stimulus and response. And inside that space is choice. That choice might be the difference between reacting impulsively and responding thoughtfully, between escalating a conflict and resolving it, between damaging a relationship and strengthening it. Goleman's message is ultimately optimistic. Emotional intelligence isn't fixed, it's a skill. Self-awareness can be practiced, empathy can be strengthened, self-control can be developed, and over time, these abilities shape how people experience you as a leader, a partner, a friend, and even as a stranger in conversation. The people who navigate life most successfully are not necessarily the most intellectually brilliant. They are the ones who understand emotions, both their own and those of others. If one idea from this book made you reflect on your own reactions or relationships, write it in the comments below. And if you enjoy exploring psychology, human behavior, and ideas that help you understand life more deeply, make sure you like the video and subscribe to Bookworm. There are many more powerful books ahead. Until next time, pay attention to what you feel, because sometimes your emotions are trying to teach you something your thoughts haven't understood yet.